fix. Nothing's band-aid fixes with these cuts. Find the money. I know it's somewhere. I know I don't work in the IRS, but believe me, it's gotta be the 40% more relatives. People are going to work with these cuts. People are gonna lose jobs. They might lose their families, or worse. What is gonna happen then? So again, I strongly ask you to please invest in Rhode Island and RIPTA and make Rhode Island strong. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. First of all, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to the members of RIPTA for being here and to supplying the great service that you do for us. I am a lifelong RIPTA rider, and everybody's situation is different for why they take the bus rather than driving, or you don't have a car, or whatever your personal reasons are. But I think it's safe to say that everybody in this room knows what risks are going to be for all of us riders if services are cut. People will lose jobs, they're not going to make it to medical appointments, and all the other reasons our daily lives will be impacted, which we've stated multiple times, which I think is a big frustration for a lot of us riders. I feel like we're chasing our tail at this point. And just, I mean, how many different ways can we say, please don't cut funds? So, also, I'd just like to also say that the financial situation for all of us riders is extremely impactful, because if we switch over to ride shares like Uber and Lyft, it costs quadruple the amount of money to get to where we're going than it is from just, and let's see. So I just want to say that that we need to try to convince government and the public transportation officials how important it is that the whole state keeps mobilized. And as long as we're being mobilized, we improve the economy, and it all keeps us connected as a community. And I feel like we're personally not asking RIPTA to impose brand new services that are impossible to implement. I think we do, however, need things to remain the way they are, so most of us can just survive on a daily basis. So.
Hi, my name is Amy Glidden. I'm the chair of Rhode Island Transit Riders. I just want to thank RIPTA for being here tonight. I've been to a lot of these hearings over these years, and I can't recall the last time a CEO came, let alone explained some of what was going on. You know, RIPTA took care of us during the pandemic. They didn't cut ridership. When we needed more drivers, we advocated for them. RIPTA gave it to them, us to them, and you know, the efficiency study shows that RIPTA is doing a good job. The problem is that Governor McGee did not allocate enough funding in his budget. And I have 3 words for you: McGee, McGee, McGee. You've got a flyer. Randall always hands these out. It's got McGee's number on here. Call him. If you've called him once, call him again. You know, if you don't want to talk to someone, call at night and leave a message. The people are super nice on the phone. They want to take your call. 222-2080. So I live in Cranston, but everything I do is in Providence. I work in South Providence. I'm an ESL teacher. I ride 2 buses to get to work, and I'm worried that with the connections I have to make and the reduced service on the 20, 22, and R line, I might have to take Lyft to work, which I could afford to do, unlike a lot of people, but it would cost $400 a month, and then I'd just be living paycheck to paycheck. And most people do not have that option. What people who drive cars don't get is that we design our lives around not driving. We chose to live somewhere because it has a bus line that we depend on. We pick a job that we can take a bus to. We can't just move or get another job if our line is cut. And we take a lot of lines besides the ones that we commute on. I really could be taking any line when I go somewhere. People have many reasons for not driving, such as disability, old age, or environmental reasons. And a lot of people cannot afford a car. They cannot afford Lyft. They may not be able to bicycle or walk, and they have literally no option. We need to call the governor. We need to tell him that he needs to find funding for RIPTA now. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in our homes. People will lose their jobs. Some won't be able to get to their college or leave campus on the weekend. Some people won't be able to access social services, health services, mental health services, go to church on Sunday, and have resources for their children. Governor McGee was the one who didn't fund RIPTA in his budget. We asked the governor to do the right thing and give RIPTA funding so that over 40,000 riders aren't thrown under the bus.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Maddie Harris. I'm a resident of Providence, and I moved here about 1.5 years ago. And one of the reasons I moved is because I knew there would be a bus line. I'm here today to call on our city and the fearless Providence leaders to strongly oppose the RIPTA service changes and pervasive cuts to the over 50 affected routes. I'm also here to advocate for our young people in the community, young and old, such as those that use the 55 route on holidays and weekends for various experiences, like those students at Providence College, or students from Bryant University who use the 50 to get to and from campus. Conveniently, many of these students are on summer break and may not be aware of these changes that their campus is making. Many on college campuses, including me, who works there, cannot have personal cars due to how much it costs to go to college or just live in the state, or anywhere, to be fair. Meaning that many of our new students in Providence have to rely on the public transit to get to and from. Minimizing the service to PC on holidays and weekends will only isolate the students in communities who need to commute to get off campus. I cannot speak for the population at Bryant University, but eliminating service to their site could create more barriers for those commuting in and around. Moreover, there are other numerous populations affected by this proposed change, which you're all here, so I know that you're probably affected. Even if you're not, I'm still glad you're here. We have folks who take the RIPTA to the beaches that our Ocean State is so proud of, or our Brown University health campuses for medical appointments, which we're also really proud of. We have folks coming and going to the airport or communities of South County or Boston. We have students and elderly and those limited by ability who use the RIPTA. The people that serve you your Dunkin' Donuts in the morning are using the RIPTA. The ones that clean your public restrooms are using the RIPTA. The ones that advise your college students or take care of your taxes for you, they're using the RIPTA. Everybody uses the RIPTA. I don't care what the numbers are. The people that ride two different routes to just take a college course at CCRI or RIC, or the family having to bus to the nearest grocery store because there's no other place in their neighborhood to go. Please, the proposed cuts to the RIPTA affects everyone. Furthermore, and I swear this will be quick, it's embarrassing to live and work in a place governed by the shared idea that we are a place for all, regardless of status and ability. The cuts to the RIPTA will not only affect my morning commute, which at this point is the least of my worries, but will only continue to increase the gap between those that are struggling and those that are not. To those sitting in this room, and as you hear the public out, I'm begging you to oppose these unfathomable cuts to RIPTA. If you want to be for the people, you will not cut this, and you will not let the effects of poor planning, inflation, or any other budget deficit excuse trickle down and affect those who rely on the social services such as RIPTA. I ask that you think about how this massive cut could have an everlasting effect on RIPTA's success going forward. I ask that you listen to the public, the ones before and after me, who have shared their own stories and advocated for the public transportation system for all Rhode Island residents. We all deserve it. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liza Birkin. I'm the board president of the Providence Streets Coalition and an organizer with the Save RIPTA campaign. And I'm here to repeat my comments from the noon hearing and from the South Kingstown hearing and from last year's hearings. God, it sucks to be in this room with all of you. I love seeing you on the bus, and I hate seeing you here. I don't want to be here. It is insane how they make us beg and grovel for basic services. This should not be the case, and basic services that are an economic benefit for our state. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but I just want to repeat what Amy said. Please, whatever you're going to say here tonight in this room, please call the governor and just repeat the exact same thing. Let that voicemail have it. Let the email have it. Let the social media comments have it. He needs to hear from you. And your state reps and your senators need to hear from you. We need to hear from each other, and we're here in this room together in solidarity. And the power of the people, this is what is going to stop the cuts. Okay? So please call Please come to Kennedy Plaza at 5 p.m. on Wednesday night so we can be together in solidarity at the bus hub with other riders and call again and stop this. And then please come Thursday morning to the board meeting, 9:30 a.m. on Elmwood, to tell the board of RIPTA to vote no on these cuts. Because once that goes through, if that goes through, it's not going to go through. The power of the people can stop this, and that's what we're here to do tonight, and we have all week to stop it. So keep showing up. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the bus.
My name is Gala Heimer. I'm 16 years old and I live in Exeter, but I commute to Providence and East Providence daily without a car for work, school, and to see my friends. I've been a RIPTA rider for years and will receive my driver's license in the fall, but as my family cannot afford the elevated insurance rates associated with new drivers, I will continue to be dependent on RIPTA services. Thank you. It currently takes me an hour and 45 minutes to get to school with a 15-minute transfer between the 66 and 33, and a trip I take every week takes over 2 hours with a 30-minute transfer between the 66 and the 54. A common occurrence during return trips is missing the 66 by seconds or minutes and having to wait half an hour to an hour for the next one, which will happen much more frequently if routes like the 33 are reduced in frequency by even the proposed 10 minutes. Frequency reductions will make getting where I need to go much harder, likely involving longer transfer times that extend my trips beyond reasonable times and fewer options that will impede my ability to leave and arrive when I want. With the weekend elimination of the 14, trips to Newport will triple from a 2-hour to a 6-hour round trip for me. The elimination of the 69 will completely cut me off from beaches, friends, and the library I use, which is the only transit-accessible one in my area. I'd like to think of myself as a patient transit rider, as I'm quite used to trips taking me 3 times as long as driving. However, I will not be so patient and forgiving as to stay silent on these service reductions. I love Rhode Island, and I'm proud to be from here, but our state is doing a great disservice to its citizens in choosing not to fund RIPTA, an absolutely vital institution in the lives of workers and students like me who do not want to drive or who cannot afford to. Transit riders are often the most vulnerable in our communities, and take it from someone with a 2-hour commute, we do not need nor deserve more complications and restrictions in the ways we get around. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all the people at RIPTA for being here. It's great to see you, Chris. And thank you, Ed. Unfortunate circumstances. I'm here in my capacity as a rider. I am also a labor leader on Brown's campus, helping to represent over 5,000 workers at both Brown University and Brown University Health. We have hundreds of workers and students who depend on these services. I personally depend on the 92. It's nice that it comes every 30 minutes. It makes it usable as a route. Having that cut off in the middle of town, requiring a transfer to get to Federal Hill, not being able to go get groceries on the weekends is going to be devastating for me. These service cuts don't need to go into effect. There is funding out there. It can be found. I decided over the weekend, some may know me from writing a funding study last year, coming to one of these hearings. Here we are again. I do have a day job and a second job, and also a thesis that I'm working on, but I decided this weekend to spend some time and write a new funding study for RIPTA, which was published this morning. You may have seen it, probably haven't heard of it. I have some copies here if anyone's curious. But I have come up with a dozen new ways that have yet to be proposed to fund RIPTA that the governor can redirect money. Most of them can be done through purely executive actions and done on short term and short notice to get this service cut delayed or put off forever. You need to take action and call your governor, as other people have already said. But it's also important to consider we need further sustainable funding in the long term, but we need some sort of emergency gap now. We can redirect funds from other programs, from federal money that is existing within RIDOT or is allocated to bond measures. There's money sitting that could be had through fare increases to programs that currently, my own institution, Brown pays less than any other school in the state for the UPass program. We could increase that. Brown could voluntarily decide to do so out of the goodness of its heart and its commitment to the community. There's also, I'm withholding my own thoughts on the agreement. Brown has signed a $50 million agreement with the federal government to give money to workforce development programs. Workforce development programs become much more difficult when there is not bus service and people cannot do job training and then get to work. Part of this money, through an agreement between the state and RIPTA and Brown University, could be allocated to both job training programs, and those job training programs could then provide free RIPTA passes to all participants to help ensure they have the mobility to get to work. But that is only doable if we avoid these cuts, and so that action needs to be taken now. I'd like to thank you all for your time, and hopefully together we can avoid these cuts by Thursday and continue riding the bus. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pablo Calderon. I live in Providence. I've lived here most of my life, and I am a teacher, a high school teacher up in Woonsocket. Public transit is my only form of transportation. I've relied on RIPTA most of my life, from high school to now. I went to college in a place with no public transportation, and I was so excited to come back to Providence, and people would ask why, and I said the buses. The buses and RIPTA have always been there for me, and they're here for me now, and I hope they're there for me in the future. And it's not even just for me. As a teacher, I ride the bus with my students. I see them almost every day. They see me and go, "Mr. Calderon rides the bus? That's cool." They like buses now, and I hope they love them. I take the 31 and then transfer to the 54, and that is a very close margin of transfer. So I get to work on time, but many of my students will be like, "Oh, Mr. Calderon, sorry I'm late," and it's because they missed their transfer by a minute. And that's going to get even worse in the future. It's something that needs immediate resolution. And just today I got a message from a former student saying, "I was planning on going to Rick in the fall, but now I'm not sure if I can commute from Woonsocket to Providence." And we're all here today to make sure that I can continue working, you can continue working, and the future of Rhode Island exists and has their access to education. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ian Westcott. I live in Elmhurst in Providence, roughly that way. I'm a homeowner. My wife and I share a car. I ride a bicycle, and I also ride the bus. I know there are lots of folks who rely on the bus because they don't have a choice. And for those of you here tonight who fit that description, I want to thank you all for speaking up about how severely these cuts will impact you. I don't know why that argument hasn't landed with the governor or the General Assembly, so respectfully, and hopefully without overshadowing your viewpoints, I'm going to try and offer a different viewpoint. I have the privilege to choose, and I frequently choose to ride the bus. I commute to Boston, and when I do, I take the 55 or the 57 to the commuter rail. I also take those buses to the mall to buy clothes for my son. I often go downtown to Maroichi for lunch, or to Federal Hill or Fox Point for dinner, and I love that I can walk to the 92 to get there. For me, having more choices makes a big difference in my quality of life. It's why I chose to live in a place with more options to choose from. I grew up in Rhode Island, not in a transit-accessible part of Rhode Island. I lived in Boston. I lived in New York City. I went 17 years without a car. I came back to start a family. But in simple terms, even though I'm a car owner, the bus helps me earn money, and the bus helps me spend money. And I don't see parking and traffic as insurmountable obstacles to going out. I see them as an opportunity to make a different choice. And that's the reason why that I have to offer for why we need to invest more in RIPTA, because we shouldn't be making these choices harder for people. We should be making them easier for people. We shouldn't be here fighting this death spiral that's being brought about under the misguided premise of austerity. We shouldn't even have to fight to keep service as is, because we should be expanding it. So more people have more choices to use transit and to contribute to the state's economy, because transit is an economic engine. Every dollar invested in transit comes back through economic activity. It makes it easier for businesses and academic institutions and healthcare and research institutions to attract talent. Are you listening to me, Governor? It increases property values. It promotes housing development. It broadens the tax base. Oh yeah, and it also increases equity and economic opportunity for low-income and disadvantaged Rhode Islanders. But hey, if that's not enough for you, then maybe some of those other reasons I listed are helpful in understanding why it's essential to fund RIPTA. Thank you.
Well, I don't know how I can follow that. My name is Lev Poplo. I'm a resident of Cranston, and I'm also the lead organizer of Indivisible Rhode Island. Mr. Duran, Mr. Brown, I just want to say thank you for being here, for listening to all this. I can tell by the way your shoulders are slumped and how upset you were reading all the changes, that if it was up to you, you would find the money, and you would make sure that these routes continue to serve the people of Rhode Island. On a personal level, I am sick to death of the people who can least afford it, who most need social services, having to pay the price for those people who are unwilling to. Whether it be elders getting to their doctor's appointments or the supermarkets, whether it be a working class person who needs RIPTA to get to their job on time, or a student like that young man where did he go? Who takes an hour and 45 minutes every day just so we can get to school. These people are heroes. These people are trying to just make the best of their life that they can, and they need you. And they need RIPTA. And our city needs good quality public transportation. I'm not from Rhode Island. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, a city with some of the best public transportation on the planet. I couldn't even imagine what people who use RIPTA regularly go through. I don't use it regularly, but I do use it. And the times that I've needed it, I've been grateful that it was there for me. So, like Amy said before me, and what was your name? Liza said before me, there is an answer here, and the answer is up in the State House at the governor. He has the power to call the legislature back into emergency session to find the money. As that gentleman, where did he go, who just spoke a few minutes ago with his brilliant new financial study. He's already found the money. What we need is the governor to do what you need and what the citizens of Rhode Island need, which is to fund public transportation. I mean, like I said before, I'm sick and tired of it. The wealthiest among us skate along, and those who most need grovel just so they can get by. How the hell are you supposed to lift yourself up into a better life if you struggle just to get to work every day or to school every day? It's not right, and it needs to end, and we can end it. So I would encourage you to call the governor, to email the governor, to everybody, and I mean everybody, and to tell everybody you know. Luckily, I have a pretty large network. One thing I can tell you is in the last 4 days, 2,500 people, because we've reached out to them, have done that, and it's not enough. If the governor hears from 10,000 or 15,000 or 25,000 people in the next 24 hours, hopefully he will be smart enough to know that he can't ignore the people any longer. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Robin, and I live in the hood. I've lived in Providence all my life. I live in Onlyville right now. Thank you for your hiring initiatives. It absolutely has made a difference. I was sitting outside with someone in Onlyville yesterday, and this other person remarked, wow, there's a lot of buses for a Sunday. And I said, well, that's because they hired some new folks. Because on Sunday became a day that you tried not to do anything. Saturday, maybe. Sunday, like, forget about it. You're going to wait an hour for each bus, both ways. So that's like, 4 hours of waiting and maybe 2 hours of what you went to do. Before I retired, I actually worked for the Department of Human Services. So I had direct knowledge as a social worker and also as a manager of the SNAP and medical units of what it takes to go to school, to drop off kids. Sometimes it's 8 buses a day. If you live in the city, that's doable. If you're trying to get into the city and then do that, it's almost impossible. And so to cut buses, you're cutting people's lifeline. So my saying of the day is, it's not a bus ride, it's a lifeline. It literally is a lifeline. And I think the governor needs to think of it in terms of that. It's not a ride, it's a lifeline. It's how people get to school, it's how they buy food. If you live in a food desert, you're being predators, the corner store thing. Then you spend up your SNAP money. Then you don't have enough to stretch even that much through the month. So it's really critical. A doctor's appointment is not always just a doctor's appointment. It's a senior citizen in February in the middle of the cold that also has to get to the lab. And then they have a follow-up. So it may not be one appointment. It may be some kind of physical therapy where they're going repeatedly. So, it's not a bus ride. It's a lifeline. And I have direct knowledge of what it takes for someone to do school and then try to do a job search and drop off kids, literally 8 buses a day. So if those buses are cut, is that even possible anymore? If someone is in an industrial park where the buses are being cut, are they going to have a job anymore? It looks like it's going to be a situation where even in the city, people are going to be walking for quite a ways to get to work, which folks in more rural or suburban areas have always had to deal with. We're a little more fortunate in the city. So, the bus is really critical. The R line, as an example, there's a hospice on that line. I can only imagine what it's like to live in an outlying area and you're trying to get to someone who's dying and you can't get there anymore unless you walk to it. And I'm not trying to be histrionic. I think that's a reality. It's not a bus ride. It is a lifeline. If you can't get a ride and you can't ride a scooter and you can't afford a ride share and the bus doesn't come, then you have to walk. And in the kind of weather that we've had as of late, that's really not possible. You can't walk very far when it's 95 degrees out. And you sure can't do it with the kind of rainstorms that we get anymore. So, you know, it's a much more serious matter than I think the governor thinks it is. You know, if you can't get the job, then you don't pay your bills. If you can't pay your bills, then you might lose your home, an affordable one at that. Because if you lose your apartment right now in Rhode Island, good luck getting one you can still afford. Probably not going to happen. It's like trying to move in Manhattan right now in Rhode Island. So, you know, it becomes a housing issue also, potentially. And, you know, I'm going to say, honestly, I take the bus a lot. And I could buy a car, but I don't want to because I'm retired and it's just going to sit. And a lot of days I have to go and start it up and all this stuff and clean it. And I don't want to deal with that. And I don't want to pay for gas. And I don't want to deal with the environmental issues right now either. But I do have the option of a ride share. So if the rates go up and the bus isn't even coming as often as it should, do I want to take a ride share for $2 more? Maybe. And that's where RIPTA is going to lose money. So that's something you want to think about.
John Welch, RN, an engineering degree. 3% of Rhode Island's population use the public transport. That's why you have limited political clout. I've been pushing for the extension of the R line, which has 25% of the total state ridership. I'm proposing going through Central Falls with 22,000 residents to Stop and Shop Cumberland Mall. $375,000 would be required to convert the 71 route schedule to a best schedule in the state R line. And with that, you'd be allowing those people to work evening and night shifts. It's an economic improvement. The last bus serving Central Falls is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Centralville Bank Stadium game doesn't start till 7 p.m. I'll go to the Rhode Island soccer team manager or president and suggest that if we use the remaining home games and we can get 10% of that most populated dense city to attend your home games at $16 per seat, that maybe it would be worth $3,500 for you briefly hiring me, because I'm only living on Social Security. I haven't owned a car in 15 years. I use RIPTA exclusively, and it's a matter of principle. I was making $50,000 to $70,000 more as a nurse before I was forced to retire at 75. I'm 77 now. Pretty good athlete coming from Detroit from that. And I'm saying that this is a good organization that's just underfunded. But I will say you have to have your machines reading the cards and scanning cell phones, because 10% of the time on the R line, they're not working. And that's inexcusable. That person should be working night shift and when the buses aren't driving so that we don't lose revenue. Thanks a million. I hope we win, but I think affordable transportation is more important than affordable housing now. Thanks, and I appreciate battles because I'm a pretty good fighter and I'd like to continue fighting with you.
Hi, my name is Randall Rose. I am part of another bus rider group, the Kennedy Plaza Resilience Coalition, and I'm glad to see a number of other people from our coalition here. I'm from Providence. So a lot of people have made many good points already. I don't need to repeat a lot, but you know, people have been asking, why are the politicians doing this? Why are they cutting the bus funding and when they know what impact it's having? I mean, I do really appreciate the ordinary politicians, the state reps and state senators who have been supporting bus funding. A lot of them get it. But in this state, the real decisions are made not by the rank and file state reps and senators. They're made by the House Speaker, the Senate President, and the Governor. They're the ones who make the decisions about money. RIPTA doesn't get any say. The people at the top of the State House make the decisions. And the way they work is, even if they hear that people need some RIPTA or some other service, they try shortchanging it. They try giving less money than people need, and they see if there's any backlash or outcry. And if there's not much of an outcry, then they don't have to give more money in future. But if there is a lot of outcry, then they'll put the money back. They'll restore the money. And that's what we have to do, because they always like to experiment with that. I mean, they're not as sensitive. They look like they're not listening to what the people want because they don't react as fast as the regular state reps and state senators, but they're just holding back and seeing what they can get away with. So I think people really need to call the governor, the House Speaker, and the Senate President, and ask other people to call too. The more calls, the better. And their phone numbers are on these flyers I've been passing out. And you should also call your own state rep and state senator. And I put a link on here to where you can find out the contact info for your state rep and state senator. When you contact your state rep, tell them to contact the Speaker of the House. Tell them to ask the Speaker of the House for enough money to keep RIPTA going, permanent funding, so we don't have bus cuts. When you contact your state senator, tell them to contact ask the Senate President to make sure there's enough money. Because that's the way decisions get made. The House Speaker and the Senate President aren't chosen by the voters, but they do have to listen to your state rep and your state senator if you contact them. So that's worth doing. Yeah, they say the decision's going to be made Thursday at the RIPTA board meeting. Thursday is not the important day. Even regardless of what happens on Thursday, it's going to come down to how much pressure there is on the top state leaders. So even if we get something on Thursday we don't like, we can keep the pressure going. We may have to keep fighting in the weeks after Thursday before these cuts are scheduled to go into effect. They can still be canceled. Or we may have to fight the State House the following year in the General Assembly to get more funding. But don't be discouraged whatever happens on Thursday. And if on Thursday the state leaders say, yeah, we're going to give a little more money, there won't be quite as much cuts, we're not going to give up. Let's keep fighting if that happens. We got to make sure that none of these cuts happen. And also, it is worth joining bus rider groups because politicians pay a lot more attention if there are bus riders groups, and you know there are 3 of them here. There's the Kennedy Plaza Resilience Coalition that I'm in, Rhode Island Transit Riders, Save RIPTA. You've heard speakers from all of them. They're all good groups. I recommend joining all of them because they all can help. Please continue fighting and encourage other people to call because, you know, the politicians like to act like they're not listening to us, but they can't ignore us because they have an election coming up, and we have to show that they're going to lose votes if they end up making cuts that are going to have all these devastating consequences. So tell them about the problems, but also make clear that your votes are going to depend on this, or you're going to remember this when the election comes. So thank you.
So when we were invited to this hearing, it was suggested that we come in and tell our story. The last thing I want to do is tell my story for a few reasons. First of all, it's my own business. I'm not here to tell everyone about my personal business, but also because I'm not here for my bus route. I'm for your bus route, your bus route, your bus route, and your bus route. Okay? They want to divide us. You want the 31, you want the 34, you want the 54. It doesn't work unless it all works. Who cares if I can get to my job if you can't get to yours? And then we live in a state where people can't get around. It affects everyone. It's a collective effort. And, you know, they say this is going to affect bus riders, and there's this many people who ride the bus. RIPTA doesn't affect bus riders. RIPTA affects everybody, okay? That's one less car on the road. That's one less parking spot. Even more so, that is the person who might be your emergency room doctor. It might be your teacher. It might be your lawyer. It might be your kid, okay? So even if any individual person isn't riding RIPTA, It affects everyone. And there's one other area that RIPTA is extremely important that I haven't heard mentioned yet, but RIPTA reduces drunk driving, impaired driving, and distracted driving. I don't know what money we're giving to drunk driving prevention. Transit is the answer, okay? But I can't get home after 8 p.m. I'm not drinking during the day. And we get up and we say, okay, I mean, no shame if you are, but I'm just, okay. But also, we have to get up and say, oh, I'm here for work. I'm here to go to church. Fine, that's awesome. I want you to go to work, but I also want you to go to a hookup, okay? We don't need to ask just for social service. This is a right. This is not just for poor people who can't afford a car, and it's not just for people who aren't able, right, to drive. That's me, but still, it's for everyone. It's for all people. We've gotten up and we've said this many, many times. Nobody wants cuts. No one has ever gotten up here, never, and said, I want cuts. I've never heard it. Has anyone ever heard it? No. We want three things: better connectivity, better reliability, and care. We want to care for each other, we want you to care about us, and we want the governor to care about all of us. Okay? So I'm not up here to say that I deserve, or my bus ride deserves more than anyone else. It's about all of us. It's about people who ride the bus, people who don't ride the bus, pretty much anyone who's alive. Cutting the bus is really, really short term. It's shooting ourselves in the foot. It's going to cost more in the long run, whether it's for loss of jobs, more homeless people, all of these different issues that are going to come up. It's all going to come and bite us in the ass later if we don't fund it now. Pay now or pay later.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jillian Hubbard, and I took the bus here. I'll be quick. I am almost halfway through a 6-week term of service as a grand juror, which involves taking the bus to the courthouse every day. And I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to take this time away from my life and away from my job to do my civic duty. I'm happy to sit on this jury, but I do rely on the bus to get downtown. And I am lucky enough to have a car, to have the privilege to afford a car, even though half of the time it's in the shop because it's a piece of trash. And I could drive, but I don't want to. The roads are so treacherous. There's always lane closures. There's always an accident. There's always traffic. And then if you get where you're going alive, you still have to park. I don't want to do it. I want to keep taking the bus. I love the bus. Stop the cuts. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jerry, and I represent AFSI, which stands for Advocates People Supporting Employment First, and I'm a proud resident of Providence. Soon, I will be moving to Cumberland, which brings me to why I'm here tonight. So with the routes being cut, especially the 75, it's gonna make it very difficult for me to get to my job because I have to take three buses just to get to where I go, and there's no guarantee that I'm gonna make it to the my second or third bus because I would have to wait at least 30 or 40 minutes. All I'm asking is not only for the governor, but RIPTA to recommend a solution to help all of us, or else we're for the reason why we're here tonight, we're gonna have to recommend finding someone else who can do the job. If the governor wants our vote, he really needs to step up his game, or we have to find someone else who's more capable of doing the job.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Salzillo, and I'm a lifelong resident of Providence, Rhode Island. And I was asked to come up here and tell what I know. And here's what I know. First, I'd like to thank RIPTA for being here and all that. But what I know is that there's a lot of lines being cut here entirely, just being entirely cut out. I know that my line isn't one of them. I know that my line, in fact, is one of the lines that is being affected the least in this whole situation. But I also know that there's a lot of people that have been homeless, and they use the bus to get just 2 hours of sleep each night, just to get that little bit of rest. And I know that there's so many other people, there's so many other stories. We've heard some of them here. And look, I don't need to tell any of you this. What we see here is a group of people tied together only by the knowledge that public transportation is a basic necessity. It is a basic necessity. And at the end of the day, what we're doing here now is we're looking at all the investments that we try to make in our people. And what our government has said is that this basic necessity, and not getting rid of tax cuts for the rich that have been going back for decades, these are the investments that we choose to put aside. And to be honest with you, that's been the story of this entire country for the past 3 decades now. And look where it has gotten us. Look at where we're at right now. Are we happy with the world that we're living in? Not at all. Not at all. You can see it across the political spectrum. Nobody is happy. Everybody is feeling like they're going to crack at any moment. That pressure. And through that pressure, by the way, RIPTA has been there. Through the pandemic, RIPTA has been there. Through so many other crises that we've had in our lives, RIPTA has been there. And if I could only say one more thing, we see the people here and we see the people who are not here. But even the people who are not here are people that depend on RIPTA without even knowing it. Because beyond what everybody else has said, what about the people who don't know it, but they're going to have their car break down in 2 or 3 months? Where are they going to go? They're going to use the bus. And when September comes around, those people, whenever those cars break down, are going to be taking a hike a lot of the time, especially on Sundays, especially on weekends. And I really hope, I know that you guys are fighting the good fight in every way that you can, but I really hope that, one, us the people will stand up and give the governor hell, just to put it in plain English, and to give everybody hell that is in charge of this. But I also hope that at some point, the governor, the leaders have to have a heart. We have had decades of tax cuts for the rich. And to be honest with you, that, my friends, is expenses that have not caught up with revenue. And that's what I think about this. But what do I know?
I support everything the last speaker just said. My name is Justice Gaines. I am a resident of Southside Providence. I'm on the Providence Sustainability Commission as well as work for Sistifier, where our participatory action research has shown that women of color and non-binary people of color in Rhode Island are pressed for time, pressed for cash, can barely make their bills, and this would only add to that burden for many of our members. But today I'm not here to speak as part of Sistifier. I'm here to speak as a resident and as a frequent RIPTA rider about how these cuts will impact the livelihoods and the lives of so many Rhode Islanders. As you've heard before, it's going to stop people from getting to work, from going to appointments, from going to the laundromat, getting their groceries, going to activities, going to parks, going to businesses, schools, universities, shelters, service, church, their own family, and it's going to impact our drivers too, are going to get cut. And all of this is going to have a major impact on our economy. We will see this impact Rhode Island's broader economy. We will see revenues drop. We will see businesses close. Businesses, not even just the big ones, but the ones owned and run by Rhode Islanders. And it's not going to make anything more efficient. It's simply going to make it harder to live in this state that already has a housing crisis, that already has a transportation crisis, and that already decides it does not want to invest in working class people on a regular basis. We're also going to see the health impacts in terms of cost of this, because more cars on the road is going to affect our young people and our immunocompromised people. I live in Southside and Washington Park. are within the 99th percentile of asthma in the country already. And this is certainly not going to help. So the impacts on our economy, the impacts on our environment, the impact on the people of Rhode Island, these cuts will just be another poverty tax on working class Rhode Islanders without cars, rural Rhode Islanders, youth, black and brown families in the urban core who rely on RIPTA. And we saw when RIPTA piloted the free R line, ridership increased. We saw that it increased for black and brown families, for lower income families, for non-English speakers, because ultimately, public transportation is not meant to be profit-driven or revenue-dependent. It is a public investment. It is a basic necessity, as the previous speaker said. It is not a capitalist venture, so why are we talking about money and not putting the money in to bring the money into our state and make sure that our folks can continue to live their lives? What I'm asking for the governor and the politicians is actually care about people for once instead of your pockets, but we know they won't do that. So what I'm asking for you all at RIPTA, because I know you don't want to do these cuts based off of how you presented here, is that you refuse these cuts and we will refuse with you. Refuse these cuts, we will refuse with you, and we will continue to stand together to invest in public transportation for Rhode Islanders.
Hi, my name is Will. I'm from Warwick. I ride the 4, the 17, the 18, the 19, the 31, and the R line on a regular basis. I'm also often commuting by bicycle, often taking advantage of RIPTA's Rack and Ride. I also use the commuter resource RI and Drive Left's RI apps. In short, RIPTA is the foundation of my transportation around the state. I want to start by acknowledging the awful predicament that RIPTA has been put into by the failures of our legislators. I have no advice on how to handle the cuts and no feedback to give on which routes should be impacted in which ways. I do have one request, however. If these cuts do go into effect, which I hope they don't, I'm asking that RIPTA mark any cuts or schedule changes as temporary pending full budget funding. If you need to update schedules or cancel routes on your webpage, don't delete them. Cross them out with a red X and add a footnote, temporarily cut until full budget funding. If you need to print new schedules, do the same. This will communicate clearly that these cuts should not be permanent and should not be recognized as the new normal. My second piece of testimony is to our state leaders. I've never seen a more deliberate and hostile attack on working class Rhode Islanders. In a state with a budget of over $14 billion, I'm supposed to believe that we can't find the funding to run my bus to work? That is a lie, easy to see through when you realize we just spent $10 million on 2 giant concrete Rhode Island signs on the side of I-95. Something that most tourists will see for less than 30 seconds and can't even walk up to take a photo in front of. Mr. Potato Head was a better investment in that regard, but we're losing that too, as Hasbro has packed its bags, citing our lack of public transportation as a reason. Governor McKee, Speaker Shikarchi, and Senate President Lawson, I see your priorities. Tax cuts for big corporations like Citizens Bank and CVS, all while you run over the bus over the working class, the disabled, the elderly, and the climate-conscious people of Rhode Island. This is unacceptable. Finally, to the board. I know you'll feel the pressure to move forward with these cuts. You may even feel that pressure from the board chair himself. But mark my words, this will be a stain on your resume. Board member who oversaw the largest cuts ever. But there is a way out. I urge you, instead of voting to approve these cuts, you vote to postpone any decision by 1 week. I'm positive Chris will find a way to fund things for 1 extra week. He's that good. Take that chance to use your voice to kick this back to the governor and the legislator. Pen an open letter to Smith Hill. You now have an efficiency study that shows that RIPTA is both efficient and essential. You have hours of public testimony from this past week. Use that to request a budgetary funds that are shifted to RIPTA to close the gap. If McKee and the General Assembly still want to defund RIPTA, then fine, let that be their choice. But don't be so eager to pen your name to the largest cuts in RIPTA's history when you have the support of the legislation's own mandated study and the support of everyday working class Rhode Islanders. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samantha Richardson. I live in Providence, but I'm actually from Westerly. I still visit Westerly often. I take the 95 to get down there. And I just want to say that these cuts are going to particularly damage options for people living in southern Rhode Island. We're already left out, like, horrifically, and the flex service is kind of, I heard somebody use the term embarrassing earlier. The flex service in Westerly and some of the other routes is embarrassing. As it is right now, the last 95 that leaves to get to Westerly leaves at 5:15 p.m., even though a typical workday ends at 5 p.m. So anybody trying to get to Westerly is stranded. So I'm just going to keep it short and say that it's really going to be, like I said, damaging for people in southern Rhode Island, and we are going to be hurt by these, service cuts as well. So thank you.
Instead of putting the cuts in place as soon as possible and making the service level go for the whole year, how about running the service just like it's running now until sometime next year when the money runs out, and just announcing that, yeah, we're going to run all the service just the way it's been running, and we have enough money to do it until April. And then there will be no service from April until August, because that gives the leadership all those months to figure out how to come up with that measly little $10 or $15 million by next April. It's like we're going to be with the steering wheel in a game of chicken. It might work better. It's just an idea. The other thing I wanted to say is that a lot of talk about how needier people are even more dependent on transit. It's so pound foolish because transit fights poverty. It does this in a lot of ways. Any family that says, the bus service is good enough that, one of us, we need a car, there's always something, but this family doesn't need 2 cars anymore. And that family just got like a $10,000 raise, which is money that doesn't go to a finance company, it doesn't go to an insurance company out of state. That family is now going to have money that they're probably going to spend on local businesses and on, better things for their children. I heard there was an announcement by the governor the other day, just one of those anodyne little things like, look how beautiful our state is. We have wonderful beaches, and Newport is a great tourist attraction. Everybody should come and visit Rhode Island. And it was curious because everything that he mentioned in this little blurb of touristic promotion was transit accessible. And I feel like I'm the first person who's been walking around trying to say, if you wanted to visit beautiful, scenic, historic New England and you thought is that possible without a car? And everybody tells you, no, it's not possible without a car. You want to go on vacation, you have to have a car. And no, actually, Rhode Island is a place that a lot of people around the world have not been informed. You can come here, and there's actually a pretty nice bus system that goes to a lot of nice places. And people who live in cities and countries where transit is not some sort of marker of low status and ill fortune would be really delighted to know this. And I have actually had conversations with people like the charter boat and whale watch operators in Galilee. I said, did you ever think of promoting this to people who want to be a car-free tourist? It's accessible. And they said, wow, that's a great idea, because they're looking for any angle they can. And there's been, along the number 60 connecting Providence and Newport, there's just dozens of great places to go. And this is, jobs for people locally, any money that people don't spend on cars, any car that's not on the road. It seems so pound foolish that the state will spend more money to make it possible for me to drive somewhere than it would to make it possible for me to take the bus somewhere. That's really inefficient. And I just want to thank the management here, because I do feel that a lot of people say, well, the buses are terrible. And I have this argument with people who never ride the bus. They say, well, it's terrible. And I said, no, actually, you'd be surprised how, the drivers are professional. They pretty much, you get your transit app, it says it's coming, it comes, it's nothing bad happens to you on the bus. You've been doing a great job. And this is just, these cuts are going to take it from almost pretty good to what a lot of people who don't know have been saying, which is that, oh yeah, the bus is really, the service is terrible. It's so foolish. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Virgil Reyes. I'm 16 years old, and I'm here with the organization Young Voices. Me and many other high schoolers are worried about how this will affect the upcoming school year. This will make both getting and leaving school a lot more difficult, causing many students to arrive late or not show up to school at all, which can affect the education of many students that use RIPTA to get to school. This September, we're going to see more buses getting filled quickly and more teenagers being left at Kennedy Plaza for longer amount of times, making the problem of fights between teenagers even more common. Personally, I take the bus because I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, being taken care of by a single dad. My dad is too busy to take and pick up all 3 of us from school, so I have to rely on RIPTA for my education. RIPTA deserves more funding because of how many people rely on it for day-to-day life, regardless of age.
Grant Bulgarian, resident of Providence, I actually, native of Providence, grew up, and a longtime transit advocate. I hate to say this, since 1975. What does that make it? Half a century. Okay. Everyone is talking about the fact that, here we are in the era of climate change, global warming. The transportation sector contributes the greatest amount in Rhode Island to carbon emissions, over 40%, and we're going to cut RIPTA? That makes no sense at all whatsoever. So where does the money come from? Well, I have 3 thoughts, 3 little thoughts. Well, 2 little ones, 1 bigger, and I'll have more thoughts when in Barrington, but I only have so many minutes, so I'll just give the 3 little ones. Number 1, the traffic circulation pattern around Kennedy Plaza doesn't make any sense. If you want to go west to east, you can go down Washington Street, you can go down Fulton Street, either way. If you want to go east to west, you can't do either one. You've got to do-si-do around. Does that make any sense? No. What they should do is simply move the 4 bus stops on the north side of Fulton Street to the north side of Washington Street. Make Washington Street 2 ways, buses only, and that frees up Fulton Street to be 2 ways for everybody. Washington Street, that 1 block of Washington Street, already has a raised, slender concrete median. Who ever heard of a concrete median dividing the same direction of traffic? Well, that's what the case is right now. This would be helpful for everybody, the passengers, for the operations, and for City of Providence. So that's number 1. Number 2, there was talk last month about Rhode Island Hospital occupying so much territory that used to be house lots, and they over time acquired the house lots. Some of the houses were falling down, but some of the houses were okay, and paving them over and making them into surface parking lots. And Rhode Island Hospital currently doesn't charge for parking. Parking is free. Well, that doesn't make any sense because there is no such thing as free parking. Parking costs money. You got to acquire the land, you got to pave it over, you got to stripe it, you have to sweep it in the summertime, plow it in the wintertime, light it at night, patrol your 24 hours a day. There should be a little cost to parking, and I'm just saying a little cost. Now, if you park on the street in Providence at a meter, what is it? A quarter for every 12 minutes, so that's $1.25 an hour. So if you're there for 8 hours, that's $10. What I'm suggesting is that Rhode Island Hospital cut that in half. Charge $5 for an entire day of parking. And if someone works overtime, that's fine. It's still stay $5. And then rebate it to all their employees as monthly bus passes on RIPTA. If you multiply the $5 a day times 5, that's $25 a week, times 4, that's $100 a month. Bus pass is only $70 a month. Everybody wins. And we start encouraging folks to do what we all should be doing if we're able to and capable of, and that's taking a bus instead of driving every day. Now, sure, if you've got errands to do after work, then it's more efficient time-wise to take your car. But you're not doing errands every day after work, so the days you're not, take the bus. That's number 2. Number 3, I have suggested this for a number of years now. Someone mentioned earlier that it's a very low percentage of Rhode Islanders take transit, and you compare that to other urban areas, and we're low. We should be higher. But most people don't think about taking the bus, and if they think about it, that's as far as it goes because they have no sense of what the schedule is. And so my suggestion has been, and continues to be, to direct mail works, otherwise we wouldn't be getting direct mail on a regular, constant basis. direct mail the appropriate bus schedule to every household that's within, what is it, a quarter mile in an urban area and a half mile in a rural area? How many people have refrigerators that don't have magnets with stuff on the refrigerator? So if we direct mail the bus schedule, they'll magnet it to the refrigerator and they'll have it there. That would be step number one. And I would suggest do that at least 2 times. First time you just say, yeah, fine. Second time you say, well, maybe I ought to pay attention to it. I hear you. Those are my 3 suggestions within the time frame. And we should do that right now, right away. And I agree with the gentleman who said, don't cut. RIPTA's board should not cut on Thursday. They should say, it's staying the way it is. And instead implement these 3 little measures that have the opportunity to enhance ridership. Because that's what we need to do. We're not back to where we were before Corona. And there's no justification for that. It's time to get back there. I know there are reasons why, well, you know, this, that, and the other thing. But here are some opportunities to do it, and we ought to take advantage of it. And so I encourage everybody to make those phone calls, especially to the state legislators. So they call the elected higher-uppers, and that makes a big difference. 2 reasons. 1, state legislators will be aware that people are paying attention, and 2, state legislators will be aware that people care. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Kalen, and I take the 63 to therapy and shopping. I used to take the 63 as well to Walmart when I was working, but unfortunately, my license has been suspended due to mental illness, and right now, I've just been dealing with a lot. I need the bus to go back to college this fall and to get to my appointments at Newport County Mental Health. In the Transit Master Plan, the government talks a big game about funding transit and the environment and how important it all is. But for every dollar in transit, we get a huge benefit. The gas tax is obviously not the most effective form of revenue increasing funding source because less cars are gassed now and more people are driving. But RIPTA is comparative to similar networks. No savings have really been found. There are a lot of people who will be affected by this change. Tourists to Newport, Rhode Island, where I live, will no longer count on that same frequency of the buses that are taking them there, such as the 14, which takes them there on weekends. The 64, where some people come off the Amtrak train to Newport, will not run on Saturday. Sunday, the 63 will not run. That's the transit bus that connects to the supermarkets. People who work all day cannot get to there. It's a big problem. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Meryl Schmidt, and I work at Providence Student Union, which is a youth-led organization that is building student power for student rights and students' well-being in Providence. PSU is a proud member of the RIPTA, the Save RIPTA Coalition, and we have been so for the past, I think, 2 to 3 years. This is very important for our entire team, especially our student members who are currently on summer break, and many of them are not able to be here because of that. Because high school students mostly rely on RIPTA to go to school and get home. This is going to affect their attendance and greatly reduce academic achievement in Providence and across the state. Students need RIPTA to get to school, and beyond that, to get to jobs, to get to appointments, to see their friends, to go out, to go to the beach, anywhere you need to go, because you can't drive when you're too young. And a lot of times parents can't take the time to take students everywhere they need to go. There are also economic disparities that affect the number of students who can get around by personal car. So this will affect our student population. It'll also affect our organization because students won't be able to rely on buses to come to PSU and spend their after-school time doing something productive and getting resources in a safe community spot. This is also affecting me personally because I share a car with my partner. We live in Cranston, and we need the bus to get around because we do not have 2 cars currently. We take the bike, but sometimes we need to actually use the bus to get further and go places that aren't accessible on the bike. So I think this is going to affect a lot of families like ours that are trying to save money and reduce their environmental impact by actually reducing the number of cars they have. So in conclusion, please consider stopping these cuts because they aren't good for our future or the students who rely on this service right now.
Hello, everyone. I am a lifelong transit rider. I started riding buses here in Providence when I was a small child with my mother. Yeah, it's okay. I wrote all these notes. Who knows if I'm going to use them? The important thing is that I am a rider by choice. I have 2 cars. I ride the bus to my mechanic a lot, so that should say some things. But, you know, I do ride by choice. And that is important. The choice riders are an important part of this because it means that without the bus service, those people are going to go back to being in their cars. And more people in their cars means that traffic is going to get worse. So the people who don't ride the bus now are also going to suffer if we lose bus service. Now, I'm appreciative of the fact that, and I hope that gets through to the people out there. I don't know where the camera is. I hope that gets through to the people out there, especially our legislators who probably do not ride the bus very much. I understand. You've got a car. You're going to suffer along with the rest of us if we lose bus service. So please keep that in mind, and keep in mind the fact that RIPTA has passed its efficiency study. We're not dealing with a corrupt organization. We're not dealing with an organization that's hemorrhaging money for no reason. This is just how much it costs to have a half-decent bus network. We need to find the money to have our half-decent bus network and work on making it into a three-quarter decent bus network in the not-so-distant future, maybe. In the face of a world where, and in a country where, countless transit agencies are facing this fiscal cliff, we have an opportunity to do what Rhode Island has always done, which is get out ahead of everyone, to be independent. We put that thing back on the top of the State House. Amen. We can be independent. We can show how it's done. We can fund RIPTA.
So hi, everyone. My name is Celeste Wiedemann, and I'm a graduate student at the University of Rhode Island. And I'm here on behalf of my friends, my fellow students who could not make it, specifically those who are international students and don't have access to cars. Many graduate students can't find or afford year-round housing, although that is another topic for another town hall, but they can't walk to campus, so they rely on the RIPTA bus service. One of my friends, an example, is from Ghana, and she has a driver's license from Ghana, but unfortunately it takes over a year to get a United States driver's license. So she has no access, even if she wanted to. She could not drive, and she can't walk because she doesn't have a house near campus because there are no houses near campus. So without the bus, she wouldn't be able to get to campus, and without that, she wouldn't have her student visa, which means she would have to be deported, which means the bus saves people from being deported. Like, this is very, very important. And this is just one example, and there are many, many other examples of international students who don't have access to cars or way to campus without the buses. And we know Rhode Island is not Rhode Island without our higher education, without our community colleges or universities that rely on international students. So again, Rhode Island is not Rhode Island without higher education, it's international students, and thus the bus which gets students here. So please, 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 I know it's been said, but please fund RIPTA and help those international students be here because they work so hard and they deserve to be here just like everyone else. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity to speaking up. I currently work at the University of Rhode Island, and I have a family of 5, and nobody knows how to drive. And all the hospitals are located in this area. Thank you very much for still keeping 203 flex. But at the same time, the reliability of flex, as you probably know, are a little bit low to get to the hospital and so forth. And the topic I would like to focus on today is the bus 69. Bus 69 connects URI currently to Galilee. Basically, this area can be divided into 2 parts, a densely populated area on the north and relatively less populated area in the south. Of course, if we think about the ridership divided by the cost, probably it can be strongly affected by the southern part that has very small ridership, but a very long route to Galilee. But the devastating news came, obviously, and leadership is considering the cutting all off. I wonder how rigorously this part was looked. Is there any ways to keep the half at least instead of taking up all at once? For example, keeping the highly dense area that would shorten the route to the half, but probably securing most of the ridership. And also, if you look at the schedule, it goes to 12:30 a.m. Probably few people rise it. So I wonder if there's any way to, instead of going directly into cutting all 69 off, but save some part, condensing it to the part that has relatively higher ridership, and eventually that might increase the ridership divided by cost and may not fall into the category of cutting off. So I would really appreciate your consideration of somewhat. I totally understand the situation. The budget is really tight. I really appreciate the service. And I love RIPTA. I have lots of RIPTA schedule in my back. But today I would like to ask for your help to keep at least some part of 69, especially from URI to Saltburn Plaza. If that is difficult, at least URI to Wakefield Mall, there is a nice U-turn area. So I would really appreciate it. Lots of students also use it. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ania Sangster, and I live in Providence. I'm a co-director at the Providence Student Union. I am also a high school student at Trinity Academy for the Performing Arts, just around the corner. I've been using public transportation for as long as I can remember. For many of us, public transportation isn't just a convenience, it is a means for survival. When bus routes get cut or shut down, it directly affects our ability to get to school, after-school activities, and our jobs. Not everyone has parents or family who can drive them around. For some, the bus is the only way to get to school. My best friend's only line to get to school has been cut, and her grandmother is disabled and unable to drive. Not everyone has the luxury of a car or being able to drive. Cutting these services can lead to students being late to school or even absent, which will affect our grades and overall academic performance. When transportation becomes unreliable or non-existent, we miss out on many opportunities. Many youth like myself also rely on part-time jobs to save up for college or support our families. If we can't get to work or school, we lose so much. I want to speak directly to Governor McGee. Investing in public transportation is investing in the youth's future, not just the youth, Rhode Island's future. It ensures we have equal opportunities to succeed regardless of our socioeconomic background. We need to make sure our voices are heard and advocate for reliable, accessible public transportation for all Rhode Island citizens. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Oh, go ahead. Okay. My name is Vanessa. I am the Executive Director of Providence Youth Student Movement. I grew up on buses, actually, not RIPTA, but LA Metro bus system, which, RIPTA, we can learn a lot from LA public transportation. I'm willing to sit down. I got the routes memorized. I grew up on those buses. It is why I didn't learn how to drive, actually, until I was in my 20s. And then I learned here how to drive, and I regret it ever since. And I did take RIPTA. I actually once got a marriage proposal on RIPTA. I said no, but why deny people that experience? RIPTA is always an adventure. And when the R line was free, y'all peaked. Y'all did your thing. Because the R line got me places, and I need to go places. But more importantly, my youth got places to go to, right? As a youth organization, we're constantly supporting young people in getting to where they need to go, whether it's school, whether it's home, whether it's to an action or just to have fun somewhere, right? We're buying them bus tickets. Well, we offer to buy them bus tickets, but half the time they're like, actually, can you give me a ride share? because it's a lot quicker and it's a lot more reliable. And half the time we have to tell them, no, unfortunately, we can't afford that. You have to take RIPTA. And so with these RIPTA cuts, it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy of ridership is down, so routes are going to get cut because less people are riding the bus because the bus never shows up. But there's enough money. There is enough resources. There is enough to go around. It's just not properly being allocated. And so if we're serious about Rhode Island in our future, if we're serious about our communities, about supporting those who have to take the bus and those who choose to take the bus, it's important that we invest in public transportation. Because investing in public transportation is investing in public safety. We are all much better off when the R line shows up on time, but also when I can take the bus to Newport and not have to take that toll tax. We all thrive. And so I know y'all don't want to be here. I know this is not something that y'all are trying to do, right? This is the governor, and so to Governor McKee, I get it. You don't like young people. You don't like people of color. You don't like low-income people. You don't like people who don't own their homes. I don't know what we did to you, but for the love of God, fund RIPTA. Thank you.
So I'm a resident of Warwick. I take the number 4 bus every single day and to go to work. I also take the 3, I take the 56, I take the 57, and I have a job where I have to go to meetings all around the city of Providence, so I take a lot of other Providence routes as well. I'm a lifelong RIPTA rider. I've been taking it since I was a kid. It's a lifeline. It's absolutely essential. I moved to Warwick because my house is near a bus line. Real estate agents said, you want to live here, you can take the bus. That was a selling point for our house. I take the bus because I work at a nonprofit job, so economically, it's really hard. I also have a chronic medical condition, which during different periods of my life, I've not been able to drive for medical reasons. RIPTA is absolutely essential for me to live my life. I take it to work, I take it to socialize, I take it to go to events in Providence, and cutting weekend service for the 4 is just going to be crushing. Like, I take it to the cemetery where my late husband is buried. I take it all around, and I have taken the bus to get my wave card at Shaw's. Like, that's the only place I can get it. No one else is willing to do it. So it's just absolutely crushing to think that services are being cut. And it's an economic crisis. It's also a health crisis. Rhode Island is in a health crisis already. People do not have access to their doctors and to health care. And taking RIPTA routes and cutting them down just makes it harder for people to go to the doctor, access care, get to their AA meetings, and get other crucial mental health services that are so needed in the state. So I want the governor to reconsider. I want our politicians to reconsider. I really like the idea of RIPTA trying to pause making a decision this week so that we can try and get more political attention and get the money we so desperately need to keep public transit going in Rhode Island at this level it's at already. Thank you.
Now I'm going to try my mother's full last name, huh? Hi, my name is Amber Blaylock. I was here actually at the noon meeting as well, where I told some of my story. I'm not going to repeat that because I would like to have effectively 6 minutes of time, and also I brought my mother to tell about that. What I am going to say is, however bad we think these cuts are going to be, and they're going to be bad, they're going to be worse. Because one thing when we talk about the transit death spiral is I don't think people realize enough just how many little things add up when riding transit. I live about equidistant between an R stop and a 1 stop. They are east and west from me, so I have to choose one direction to go in. Other than that, they actually go a lot of places that I need to go. Both of them do. I'm very frequently able to get to the same places by the R or the 1. The 1 runs maybe half to a third as often as the R. I take the 1 maybe 10% of the time as much as I take the R because of that convenience factor. It is not linear, it is exponential. It is the extra convenience. It is the habit of riding the bus. And that is a thing that you lose when you have service cuts. You lose people just making optional trips because it's convenient. You lose people forming the habit of getting to go places and forming new habits of driving or walking or taking a bike. You have problems with transfers, like people mentioned at the previous meeting, where if you're going someplace and the bus frequency is lowered and you have to do a transfer, then all of a sudden it takes way longer to do the transfer. The whole trip takes longer, maybe you don't bother. It is something that will exacerbate, as mentioned by the previous speaker, our primary care crisis. I just moved here earlier this year. I don't have a primary care provider yet. I found one that'll see me in March of next year. They are not in Providence. They're a pretty good distance away. I am hoping to be able to take the bus there. If I can't, I'm going to have to beg my parents for a ride because I don't drive for neurological reasons. Fortunately, I have that option. A lot of people don't. And if they can't get to their primary care providers, they're going to be looking for ones closer to home. And that's only going to exacerbate the load. It's going to exacerbate student absentee issues, as many previous speakers have mentioned. There are students on high school and college relying on RIPTA to get to their education. There are people who rely on RIPTA to get to their job. The fact is that we think that the money that we have now, these are the cuts we need to be able to afford the bus service, but we're going to lose revenue. We're going to have more cuts and then more ridership loss and more cuts and more ridership loss until the only people left who take the bus are people who have literally no other choice, which is a situation I respect. But if we're going to insist on treating public transit as a business, maybe literally the last possible option is not the goal. And if we're going to make the more sensible choice of not running public transit as a business, because public transit is an investment in the community, the same way that roads are, which we don't expect to make a profit, then we should be looking at the fact that, hey, RIPTA is very efficiently run. We just need more money to continue to run the service at the levels it's at. So we need to make up that gap. And finally, I think it is absolutely obscene that we have to come here and beg people who do not have the ability to do really much about this, because Governor McKee is not here to face us and to explain why he is not funding RIPTA. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roberta Blaylock, and I'm that young lady's mother. My husband and I just moved here from a fairly rural area in Pennsylvania. And I can tell you what life is like without any kind of public transportation, and it is not nearly as nice. One of the big things that we were looking for when we decided to downsize and move was a place where we could actually take public transportation to different places. Because one of the things that happens when you don't have public transportation is you have to drive through traffic to get to places, you have to park and pay for parking, you have to let your car warm up and cool down as you do that, everything that goes with that. Whereas right now, we can walk out half a block from our house and take the bus. If we want to see a museum downtown, we want to go to the Water Fire Festival, we want to go to the beach, we want to do any of those things that put money into the economy and also give us things that we enjoy, we can now take the bus. And that has been wonderful. Speaking from the financial perspective, I should point out that that was a big criteria when we were looking at houses. We wanted to make sure that it was a walkable area, that we could take a bus, that there was a bus stop nearby. And we ruled out a lot of areas because they did not meet that criteria. We picked Rhode Island and we picked Providence because we could get places, we could do things, we could have fun without the stress that goes with driving everywhere. That is a target audience that you want to get using public transportation. You want to make sure that people really understand how beneficial it is. You want to get them out and doing things, some of that voluntary stuff. Even if they take their car to work, if they get used to taking the bus for other things, they take it more and more, and it builds on. And it also then provides revenue. And to follow up on that one young man who mentioned earlier about putting temporary cuts on the website, put the governor's phone number there too. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ian Nesbitt, Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, retired. I had a career in public transport over 24 years, 8 deployments. My primary transport was cruisers and destroyers, including the USS Hopper, USS Arleigh Burke, and others. I came home from the war 8 years ago, and particularly on behalf of my son who asked me to come here. So a lot of our fellow citizens that are unable to travel by car for medical or psychological reasons. This is a major decision. I'm pissed. I'm not pissed at you guys, but I'm pissed. Okay, 2 words came to my mind as I was thinking about what to say. First is impressed, and second is disappointed. I'm really impressed with this turnout. For my whole career, I was busy on the forward edge. I never came to a town call, right? So here I am, and I see over 100 of my fellow citizens and global fellows coming together, trying to express themselves with dignity and respect. That's an achievement, and I think we can all look around and just smile. Like, we look around in America, and there's a lot of yelling and name-calling, and here right now, we're coming together with dignity. This is awesome. But disappointed? I am unbelievably disappointed. There's 59 lines were affected, only 8 unchanged. That's a major decision with less than 1 month to figure all this out. This is clown show. I'm so disappointed in Rhode Island. Like, I didn't even know. I have a car, and normally my son is the bus rider, okay? So my son said, Dad, get over here. I said, okay, I'm on my way. So we get in the car, we drive over here. I'm doing the math, and I'm thinking, Governor McKee and the state legislature, this should have been figured out 6 months in advance. There should have been public hearings 6 months in advance. And if we, the fellow citizens and our global fellows, didn't show up 6 months ago, that's on us. But if you just pull some kind of nighttime magic and like, surprise, we're just gutting a basic means of connecting our state together, that's not acceptable as far as I can tell. So where do we go from here, I think? I certainly appreciate the leadership being here for this, but like the previous 2 women ago said, is that we need to contact our elected representatives, okay? For those who haven't forgotten, America is still a Republican democracy where we have our elected servants who are acting on our behalf. So we need to take the 3 hours that we just spent to do this, ask for an appointment for our state representative, and go in groups of 2 or 4 or 8. Right? And then ask that state representative, are you willing to schedule an appointment with leadership with the 8 of us? Because we'd like to go with you. Because I have a suspicion that however well-intentioned our words are to this video camera over there, I doubt it's going to mean much. I could be wrong, but I doubt it's going to mean much. But that's not how democracy is. It's not supposed to be just talking to a camera. And it's not just supposed to talking to the governor. It's supposed to be, I think, that's my understanding, is at the basic legislative level. So if we can spend the time talking to our legislatures, and whoever made this nice sheet, I really appreciate you, because it puts some key phone numbers and like website, like figure it out. So we just invested 3 hours here. We should be able to invest another half an hour tomorrow to make some phone calls, to ask for some appointments. And if they say there's no appointments, then like, can you please tell me the name of you who says there's no appointments so we can write a letter to our local papers, right? And this is a chance for all of us to be strengthening our democracy muscles, which have gotten a little bit weak. So I really appreciate all you listening to me, and it kind of feels worthwhile. Like, what did I do for 24 years? You know, what did I do was this, and who did I do it for was for my son, but also for all of you. And so I thank you. I thank all the bus leadership and the operations officer I saw earlier today who's supposed to like make a plan with 28 days. That's ridiculous. And I think we should all just be disappointed as Americans and Rhode Islanders, and for our global fellows, you're welcome too, but like, come on. So we got to make some calls tomorrow, not just today. That, I think, is the answer, and I'm going to try to do that myself as well. So thank you and good luck.
Hello, my name is Meredith Hosfield. I grew up in Cranston. I now live in Providence. I spent 10 years in Massachusetts. And I came back here during the pandemic 5 years ago. When I was growing up, I took the 22 and the 31 to get to the Met in Providence, and also the 92 among, I forget what the line was that went by Roger Williams Hospital to get to my internship. And well, for now, I mostly take the R line, which is one of the lines that's scheduled to be cut. And frankly, the R line is what makes Rhode Island livable for me, because I work up in Boston. I take my paycheck home to Rhode Island to spend it in this economy rather than trying to live in Massachusetts. And frankly, I love Providence. I love how communal it is. I love how I know a number of people who came here today. And I would, not having as much service to be able to say, even go to the places that I would like to go on the weekends, like Bristol or Portsmouth or Newport, and contribute to their economies. That is what is going to, that is also going to make this state less livable for me. It's always been a point of pride that I can say, in Rhode Island, you can get anywhere on the bus. And I don't own a car, which is somewhat of a choice for me. It used to not because I didn't have a license, but now it is because I can get to my job in Boston without, I can get to the train I can take the R line to get to the train to get to my job without increasing the amount of traffic that's going into Boston and out of Boston every day, and without having to drive while I'm tired, thus making my commute far less safe, and not to mention the environmental impacts. And I would like to live in this city, thanks. And I know I really appreciate all of the work that you folks do and that every driver I see does. And I really think that Governor McKee should invest in RIPTA and invest in our community and not make this state less livable for workers.
My name is Imani Stewart, and I live on the east side of Providence. I'm here today to share my story and urge state leaders to properly and permanently fund RIPTA as someone whose daily life depends on it. These proposed cuts are a direct threat to my ability to live, work, and stay connected in this state. I relied on these bus lines as a college student, and I rely on them now to get to work daily. The 60 line is how I get to my work in Warren. It's already a popular line, stressed by delays caused by traffic and the ongoing crisis of the Washington Bridge. The proposed frequency cuts will further burden it, and this is one of the better faring lines. The buses are already packed by 4 p.m. Squeezing more people on this bus might mean riders standing on a bus that rides on the highway. Lastly, the 92 is being bisected in a devastating way, and Sunday service will now run just once every 55 minutes. The east side section is being removed entirely and awkwardly stitched into a new, infrequent Route 91 without a weekend service. This is more than a service cut. It's a heartbreaking severing of the city. Reduced frequency doesn't just mean longer waits. It means buses that are more crowded, more delayed, more stressful to ride, especially during rush hour, which is when I and many others travel most often. It means more people left behind at bus stops, more missed connections, and more time wasted for thousands of us, hopefully, who don't have the luxury of a car or the money for ride shares. And while I'm deeply affected here in Providence, I can't stop thinking about people in Westerly and Richmond who are facing full weekday eliminations, no transit at all. How is that acceptable? These buses aren't a backup plan. They are the plan for so many of us. Cutting them means cutting people off from their jobs, their education, their community, and their futures. Please reconsider these cuts. Rhode Islanders deserve a transit system that works for all of us. Thank you.
My name is Allison Rich, and I live in Exeter. Hi, Tracy. So I've been riding this bus for as long as I've been in the state, which is 1998. I grew up in New York City, and then I moved to Boston and Cambridge. I've been a public transportation rider my whole life, and I moved down. I used to live in Chepachet, where every 4 years we'd have our bus threatened to be cut completely, and we'd have to call our state rep and our state senators and get you guys out there and call the media, and it got really old. So I moved down to South County, where I can always count on a 65 or a 66, because I know that's never going to be cut. Well, guess what? 65 is slated for demolition. So it's frustrating, but I just basically have 3 points, is that funding public transportation with a gas tax primarily is not the way to fund public transportation. have a way to do it. And it all throughout the country, every public transportation authority runs at a deficit, or it doesn't even break even. And I don't know, I don't hear about people threatening to cut these lines as drastically as they're threatening to cut. And then my other question is, I know Governor McKee doesn't ride the bus, and I'm pretty sure most members of the State Assembly don't. But I am curious to know how many people on the board actually are bus riders of RIPTA. It's a big question of mine I've always had. Because you guys are, you're in power. And, basically, if you don't understand what we're going through, then how do you understand the whole situation as a rule? But thank you for coming, and I do appreciate it. And I really, really hope that we can avoid these cuts and that McKee sees this, and I will be phoning lots of people after this hearing. So thank you very much, and I'm sorry for butting in, but I've been up since 5, and it works since 8, and I'm exhausted. I gotta get home. So thank you so much for not letting me wait another hour.
Hi, I'm Charles Feldman. I'm associated with a couple of organizations, the Oasis and NAMI, which both support people in recovery from mental health issues. And a couple of people have mentioned that already. What happened to me personally, I don't usually tell this story, but in 1978, I was driving my parents' car, and I couldn't see out the back window because of a vision I was seeing, otherwise known as a hallucination. And ever since then, I've been taking the bus. Even though I don't have that anymore, I never went back to driving after that. I now work with people with mental illness, and there's a big problem in our society with people cutting Medicaid and SNAP and housing. All these things people require, people whose lives have been interrupted by disability through no fault of their own. My working life was interrupted by disability. My school life was interrupted by disability. I've come back and I'm a peer specialist now. And some people I know have become social workers after going through periods of unemployment. And people need to take the bus who have no or very low income. And I think next year we got to revive the call to tax the rich, because that's what they did in Massachusetts, and we got to do that here, because they're talking about closing the largest mental health center in the state, Gateway. They're talking about closing the dental clinic at Rhode Island Hospital that serves kids with disabilities who need 4 people sometimes to work on them at a time, because they have disabilities and they don't feel comfortable at the dentist. So these are just some other issues coming up. And one right now, of course, is RIPTA. And people do, the ride van. Some people I know are disabled physically, so they have to take the ride van. And I hope that, I haven't heard anything about that. I hope it's not being cut, although I know that the policy is it has to be within a certain distance of a bus route. And I know people who want to take the ride van out to northern Rhode Island and various places, and I hope that's not cut. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not Celeste. They went earlier. I'm Lane Damaski. I am representing over 700 graduate assistants from University of Rhode Island. The 69 bus and the 64 bus are particularly important to us, though every single bus line is used and important and efficient within Rhode Island. Thank y'all to RIPTA so much for coming out here tonight and having all of these hearings as well for us. For focusing on the 69 and the 64, these are essential services for some of us. The 69 brings me to the doctor's office, the bank, groceries. It connects us to food banks and other social services, and it also connects us to the community of South Kingston. The 69 is our most southern bus line. I took the 69 on a Saturday to go play music. I pulled up my rideshare app to see, hey, how long will it take for me to get back? That rideshare, which was 4.6 miles, was going to cost $50. This is not something that we have anything to replace. For the 64, it is the main and only connection between University of Rhode Island's main and Bay campus. Our Bay campus is the spark of our blue economy, and it has our GSO programs as well. And both of these bus lines open housing options for our URI students, our professors, and my union members. So we highly encourage Governor McGee to see the value in the services that are continuing to go on. And thank you all, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Good evening. My name is Paul LeBon. This is my service dog, my stroke alert dog, the most famous service dog in the country. He's been on national news, Aggie, short for Agape. He's got me to the hospital 3 times and saved me from strokes. I have a very special place in my heart for RIPTA. I grew up in Woonsocket. My grandparents were immigrant textile mill workers, so were my parents. My 3 older brothers, all when they graduated from Woonsocket High School, went on to work at General Motors in Framingham. Well, I was such a hellion. The nuns pushed, and skipped a couple of grades. I graduated at 16. I couldn't follow my brothers to GM. So I decided to go to Rhode Island Junior College, the first in the family, you know. And back then, trust me, at 16 years old, your parents didn't give you a car. So the 54, I rode the 54 when it left Woonsocket, made one stop at Sales Hill, and went straight to Kennedy Plaza, and then connected on down to Rhode Island Junior College. In the afternoon, my father was the janitor at the big courthouse in Providence, so I'd take the bus home, and I'd sit in one of the courtrooms or one of the conference rooms, do my homework, and ride home with my dad. After 2 years, I went to college. I moved to New Hampshire, went to college there, started a career that took me to 160 cities around the world. I was a global consultant. 13 years ago, because of health reasons, I had to retire, and I was the highest paid consultant in the company worldwide. And literally, I say it, I owe that to RIPTA. Now I'm an author. I'm a retired, but I've written numerous books. And I wrote a book earlier this year, because when I lost my career, I knew that Rhode Island, I was living in Dallas, I'd been there for 30 years. I've been in transit systems all over Europe, all over the world, and I knew Rhode Island, RIPTA was great because it could take you to all 4 states. As an alderman in Nashua, New Hampshire, I helped start the transit system there. As a consultant, I helped Cobb County, Georgia start up their system, and I helped Denton County, Texas start up their system as a marketing consultant. So I know a little bit about transit systems. I came back to Rhode Island, I retired, I came back to Rhode Island because I can't drive anymore and I needed a place to live. I wrote a book earlier this year after frustrating for several years trying to give some ideas and suggestions to Governor McKee. The title of the book is Hopeless Rhode Island, Ocean State Underwater. And here's the subtitle, With Common Sense Solutions to Problems Created as a Result of Cronyism, Corruption, Complacency, and Cover-Ups. Now, Governor McKee and Peter Alvini tell me my book is trash, they haven't read it. But I'm not, and he says, Governor McKee says, I don't want to just read a bunch of bitching. No, it's got a lot of suggestions and ideas. And there's a chapter on RIPTA. And in the chapter on RIPTA, I talk about how, there were $30 million deficit, and they go out and spend $492,000 to an out-of-state consultant to show them how to save money. Well, it's the old saying, when you're in a hole, you stop digging. Why dig deeper? So this out-of-state consultant come in with these ideas. But in my book, if you read it, and Mr. Duran, I emailed you. I don't know if you did read it. I've gotten exchange. But I say a few things. Number one, if you go to Bally's Casino in Lincoln, there are close to 100 buses that go in and out of there every day, hauling people who can't drive, who don't have a car, can barely have money in their pocket. RIPTA delivers them free of charge to Bally's, a $4 billion corporation. We subsidize them by bringing them down and out people so they can shake them down and take their last penny. Why not charge RIPTA, charge Bally's $50 for every bus that comes in today. Hey, so they may cut back their political contributions to McKee and Shikarchi. Big up millions, they don't need them. Here's my second suggestion, my second thing. You know, RIPTA built that beautiful garage down in Wickford, right? I call it the Taj Mahal Garage. If you go there today, there's probably less than 25 cars in it because hardly anybody uses the train to come to Providence. But guess what? Starting next month, how many of you here from URI? Okay. So starting next month until next May, that garage is going to be jam-packed with hundreds of cars every day. And guess who's those cars belong to? URI students from Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Walk around and see the license plates. Charge a monthly fee. They're parking there for free. They take the 66 bus from the campus to go pick up their car and then go back. They don't have to worry about cleaning snow. It's nice and there's a guard there 24 hours a day. Charge those people. Now here's the other one, okay? The new transit center in Pawtucket, the train. They've expanded the parking lot 3 times now. It's free parking. People are going to Boston. One young lady's working in Boston. I mean, a lot of those people going up to Boston are making 6-figure incomes. And they're getting free parking, compliments of RIPTA in Pawtucket. You start at Attleboro and you go all the way to Canton. Every parking lot along the way on the MBTA line, people have to pay to park. So I hope you take that. I emailed you. Did you ever get my email forwarded to you? Or just the last week or so, yeah, because I was out of the country. I was actually in Cuba on a mission trip. A friend told me on WhatsApp that this was coming up, so I emailed Mr. Duran and said, hey, the governor didn't read my book, but maybe you might want to read my chapter on RIPTA. The other thing is, as a consultant, I would never thought that I was smarter than my clients or whatever, and I always gave them advice on how to look at their situations. So I would give you some free advice. 2 things. Number 1, have a town hall meeting with all your drivers. Talk to them, listen to them. Ask them what should be done, never mind a $400,000 consultant. And secondly, I would urge you, one day, shut down your offices, have every one of your staff and employees spend 8 hours riding buses all over the state, talking to people. Saying, walk a mile in my shoes, ride a few miles on my bus route, and then you'd have a real picture of what's happening, okay? So, and the other thing, again, so now back to the Taj Mahal Garage. Oh, my colleagues used to say about me, never ask Paul what time it is, he'll tell you how to build a watch. I'm a bit verbose. But just one last point. Again, that empty garage in Wickford right now in the hot summer days, the state, how asinine, we don't open the beaches till 9 o'clock in the morning. People could go to the garage, park there, park for the day, charge them $10 to park for the day in shade, give them a shuttle bus back and forth to the beaches. There you go. McKee and Alvita will never hire me as a consultant, but if y'all want to hire someone who knows what can come up with some good ideas for you, I'm available. Thank you. And by the way, my book is on Amazon.
Briefly, because I know people want to go home by now, but I want to ask first. My name is Pat Ford. I'm with a local indie media outlet called the Coalition Radio. We do radio in Woonsocket, and we do some digital down here. Who here has heard of the route R1636? Anyone? Curiously, it's not up on the closure list either. R1636 is the free shuttle bus service afforded to the denizens of the Centerville Soccer Stadium on game day. Now, I'm reading this. R1636 will loop continuously between key bus stops in the stadium every 8 to 10 minutes on game day. R1636 is the only RIPTA bus that will provide direct service to the stadium, dropping passengers off at nearby Ivan Memorial Park. The free game day service will begin operating 3 hours before pickup and continue to 1 hour after all post-game events conclude. How very nice for them. That's for your soccer stadium. Now, you would say, well, that's pretty cool. RIPTA's outsourcing some of their operations. How much is getting RIPTA paid? I'm from New Jersey. As we like to say, Bugats, 0.0. We are subsidizing a for-profit entertainment organization. Now, I've actually done an APRO about a week and a half ago. I'm waiting to hear. We're within time limits to find out how much that's actually going to cost. I actually APRO'd a month or two ago the contract and the, if you will, documentation on how this came to be. I was denied 148 different pieces in the APRO. I'm told it's for complicated reasons that inference being I couldn't possibly understand. Well, I'll explain it to you. You know, anyone who's followed the soccer stadium in Don Grabby and Pawtucket knows that there's probably a sweetheart deal between them to do anything they can for this hellspawn investment. Now, senior management at RIPTA will tell us that they're receiving advertising in exchange for that. Well, I don't know if there's a single thing in Rhode Island that needs less advertising, but their claim is we're going to encourage, hopefully, other people to take RIPTA who traditionally haven't. So what we're literally doing right now, and I'll find out and I'll put up on my little blog if anyone cares to read it, how much this ended up costing the state, but what we're doing is we're crucifying service right now to the people of Rhode Island. And at the same time, we're giving it away to a select few who can afford, by most estimates, a $200 or $300 afternoon at a soccer stadium. So how that makes sense at any level, you're cutting ridership in order to get more ridership. We have a saying where I come from. If you lose money on everything you sell, but you make it up in volume, it's not going to work very well. So I would demand to understand, since RIPTA is not forthcoming on how this came to be, why it's appropriate to subsidize a for-profit private entertainment company. Because soccer's cool, but it's entertainment. And I'll just leave you with this thought. The city of Pawtucket gave up $10 million of APRA funds in order to build that stadium. $10 million. Have we heard that number recently? Bueller? The city of Pawtucket is at risk for potentially over $100 million in bonds should it fail. And by the way, the people in the city of Worcester just paid $900,000 just this year alone to subsidize their baseball stadium. Sleep tight, Rhode Island.
Hi, my name is Joseph Bong. I have like a couple of stories to share. They'll probably repeats of past hearings. I have a friend who is from Indonesia. She would take the 33 from Shaw's Riverside, work her way up to Kennedy Plaza to study at Johnson, Wales. Now, if that service were to cut, it will be stranded. Now I have another case to share. This one is from Korea. She woke up this last morning, and guess what? She walked 15 minutes across Winchendon. She lives off of Winchendon Street to the 78 stop, and it didn't came. So what she had to do is she had to take an Uber to our church in Pawtucket. Now, with my friend's uncle, who's also from Indonesia, by the way, if they were to cut service on that, it's going to be disaster for to cut service on Long Eddy Street. It's going to be disaster because he's lazy to walk, as always, sometimes, but not all the time, to deliver mail at the post office. And if you look at RIPTA's efficiency study, it's proven to be the most reliable. RIPTA is proven the most reliable transit system in all of Rhode Island. And we're on par with every single transit agency, probably on Earth, I don't know. Oh, and another way to prevent, you can also prevent this is I think one of the solutions is if you look at what Mass State did, Mass State has the millionaire's tax where they provided every single transportation, free bus service to all outer areas outside of the Boston area. So I don't know. So I'm calling on all the state leaders to do the right thing. That's all I'm gonna say. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
My name is Alana Deludi. I live in South Providence. Sorry, I just ran over here in the middle of my volleyball game to say something quickly. I think we hear a lot of stories of individual people at these hearings that are using public transit themselves or know people who are using public transit, but the fact is that a functioning public transit system is an important part of a thriving state and of a thriving society, and we shouldn't need to hear individual sob stories to justify that. Transit is important, period. I don't really think we need to justify transit any more than we need to justify firefighters in public schools. And I think it's so crazy that Peter Alviti still has a job. It's wow. If I were this bad at my job, whew. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Ren Fang. I live in Eastside Providence, and I'm here to give my thoughts on our transit system. So I'll start with the personal effects. I can't drive for a variety of reasons, and while I use my bicycle to get around a lot, to run errands, I very much rely on transit to get further than like my immediate neighborhood. Specifically, I regularly take the 92 in order to travel to the west side and connect myself to the rest of the network. It's the only stop near my apartment is a 92, and I rely on it to connect me to Kennedy Plaza and to take the 1 to Market Basket and stuff like that. And with a potential reduction on this route, I'm looking at like a significant hindrance on my ability to just live my life and do the things that I need to do around the city. To go to businesses, visit friends' houses, and for what? Because it's not just about me. This sort of thing affects all of us. Transit ridership in Rhode Island has already been declining in the past 10 years, especially since COVID. And why aren't we doing anything about this? Why are we actively letting it get worse? The thing about transit is that it's really essential for, it's like the backbone of any good city. It's inherently freeing and liberating. It lets anybody get around, not just people who have the privilege, the able-bodied, the financial privilege of being behind the wheel, but like anyone who can take the bus. It also promotes financial activity around stops. People can walk around and take transit, browse shops, spend money, contribute to the economy. And it's like a lifeline. You're looking at this lifeline and you can't spare $10 million out of our $14 billion budget. When the 72 bus had its frequency increased from every half hour to every 20 minutes last year, its ridership more than doubled, and that goes the other way too. If our frequencies get reduced, we're gonna look at plummeting ridership, and that's really gonna suck. It's not just neglect, I feel like, to not give RIPTA this extra $10 million. It's an attack on our urban fabric and on the countless people who rely on public transportation. Thank you.
I'm Deanna Coleman, and I'm from here in Providence. And real quick, I'm just going to ask one question: have drivers ever had to grovel to the state legislation to justify the hundreds of millions of dollars for their roads? Thank you.